the Child Development Program. I've been here, this is finishing up my second year. And I do a lot of research on access to graduate schools. I've done a lot of workshops and presentations. I also look at pipeline, so P20 pipeline considerations, like what happens in preschool and kindergarten that influences graduate attainment or graduate school attainment when you're 32, or bachelor's degree attainment. And I know we have some of my colleagues here that you may have also had, like Dr. Alexander, Dr. Hembry, as well as Dr. Lee. And ask questions. We're going to be talking about graduate school in general, primarily focusing on master's programs, but we're also going to be talking specifically about our program. If there's any questions, anytime, just stop me and you can just say, Dr. G, I got a question. But we're going to start off, so why should you go? So first thing is, learn what interests you more. So if you were like me, when I was an undergrad taking my GEs, I was like, oh, very bored. Taking biology and chemistry, and I wasn't a big fan of those. The minute I got into child development classes, I was excited. I never missed a class, I enjoyed what I learned, and so it was like natural for me to want to continue learning. So learn more about what interests you. The other one is advancing your career. Oftentimes we finish our bachelor's degree, we get a job, and then we find out that we could be a director of a program, but we need to have a master's in order to hold that title. So oftentimes you need to come back to school in order to get that master's degree. Achieve greater flexibility in your career. So you might open doors to things that you may not have ever even thought about. So I was actually just talking to a student about becoming the director, and she's like, I can do that? I can be a director of a preschool program? Yes, you can. And being competitive. So sometimes it's like, oh, I've got this student, or I've got this person has a bachelor's degree, this person has a master's degree. I'm going to pay them the same because they both know that I can't pay them anymore. I'm going to take the person with a master's degree. So sometimes you can get a little bit more competitive. How is it different than undergrad? So there's a lot of different ways that it's different. But the biggest thing, well, three big things, is you get a specialized knowledge. So you're getting specialized knowledge in that particular field. So for instance, if you went and you got a history master's degree, you're going to get more information on history, and precisely you're probably going to specialize in a specific area of history, whether it be the civil rights movement or, I don't know, Vietnam War. But in child development, you can also specialize. Maybe you want to specialize in cognitive development or linguistic development or motivational. You can start specializing in those particular skill or particular knowledge with some of your elective courses. You also develop a specialized skill. We require a lot of critical thinking, and I know you're already doing that as undergraduates. I've had most of you, so I know that. But you're going to develop it even more. There's a lot more reading, there's a lot more writing, but the biggest thing is it becomes a seminar format. So you start discussing with each other more about your ideas. So there's a little bit, like in some of my classes, I have to do the, what do you think about that? Anybody at all? In grad school, we don't wait, right? Because somebody's gonna have something right away, right away. And so oftentimes you start to have a discussion with your peers that become like your colleagues. Like you're actually unpacking the material a little bit more. The classes are a little bit longer in the sense that you meet once a week oftentimes, and so you're meeting for a longer duration of period, so sometimes you can continue those conversations just a little bit more. And the professor usually is sitting down. I've gone to some of our classes and they're like sitting down and they're also talking about, well, I didn't really get what you read, but I could see how you could interpret it that way. This is the way I interpreted it. So instead you're having more conversations instead of being lectured. Does that make sense? It's also very independent. And so although you have courses that you're taking, and those are pretty structured, it's also independent and self-paced. So it's sort of like, okay, I have students that are like, they're already on the track to doing their human subjects, and I have other students that are like, I'm like thinking about doing this. So it's very self-paced, and that can also become a challenge. Has anyone taken online classes? Online classes are very similar. They're a little self-paced. You have that lecture, but it's like, I don't have to go to class this week, but I have to get these assignments done. When am I going to get these assignments done? Graduate school is a little similar to that, although it's not online. Okay, so I wanted to give our website. So this is our website, and it's pretty easy to find. The link is there, but I also wanted to just show you if you just went to like the CSU webpage. So if you're just at the CSU website, all you would do is you would just type in, right back here, COE, College of Education. And then right down here, we are actually undergraduate studies. And so you would just click there, and then right there you'll find child development. And it kind of gives you a lot more information. So I just wanted to sort of show you, but again, you have the website that'll take you right to that website. And we're more of an applied and a theoretical program. So you're getting not only the research experience, but you can also get the application. And those are choices you get to make once you're in the program. They're not sort of dictated to you, which actually works out really, really great. We're also not cohorted, so again, you can go at your own pace. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. These are our faculty that work in the department currently. Again, 3 of them are here. You can also find out a lot about them on our website. So if you want to go and find out more about what our faculty do, but they range, and we really range. We range from cognitive, we do research in cognitive abilities, motivational research, evaluation of programs. Dr. Henry just got a pretty large grant, or working with somebody that has a grant working on evaluation of projects. We work on adoption work. There's work on language development. So it's a plethora. And even if there's not something like a faculty member isn't doing exactly what you want, for instance, we have some students that are interested in health nutrition. We know about health nutrition, right? We may not do active research on it, or we may not be participating in research studies. We can still help you with that research and guide you through it. So how is our program structured? We just had a decrease of units, so we went from 33, so the website's not exactly up to date. So we do have 30 units of coursework, not 33. Yay! Right? And so you take some foundation courses, like applied theoretical concepts, cross-cultural development, a research methods course. There's some basic foundation courses. But then you can get into some, and then of course your core courses, and then you also have electives that you can take. And that's when you can start creating the program to fit what you want, which is really, really great and unique about our program. Then you also have a culminating requirement. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And it usually takes about 2 to 2.5 years to complete. But again, it's really self-paced, because we do have students that also want to come to the program part-time. And that's going to add a little bit of time. Really, you'll be done, if you were a full-time student, with your coursework in 2 years. And then I have students that have taken half a semester to finish up their project or their thesis, or a semester, I should say, not half a semester, a semester, up until an additional year. So that again is your sort of choice as to how that gets done. And we're here, the faculty are really supportive as to the time you want to take. Of course, we want to encourage you to finish it in that semester to 2 semester time frame, but we also understand that there are other things that are going on. So what is the culminating experience? So you have 3 choices: thesis, project, or the exam. And I will say that from my understanding and what I've seen from students is that the thesis and the project are really the 2 most common, I should say, choices for the culminating experience. So I'm going to talk about the exam first, because that's not the common choice. The exam consists of 3 questions, right? So there's a question on theory, there's a question on research, and then there's a question on sort of your foundation or your conceptual basis. And a lot of students that choose to do the exam are students that are like, okay, I wanted to get this master's because I wanted to climb my degree or climb my profession. I need to get it quick. Does that make sense? So it's like I want to finish up my coursework, take the exam, and be done in 2 years. That makes sense. That can work for some. However, the thesis and the project are more fun, in my experience. or I should just say, like, I'm a little biased. So we'll just go with that. The thesis is a product of original research, right? It's a process of doing original research. You're gonna go out, you're gonna collect data, you're gonna analyze your data, you're gonna write it up, you may even present it at one of our symposiums or a national conference. A project, very similar. You have an idea, but now you're gonna go into the community and you're gonna implement that project. For example, I think one of my colleagues has a student that is doing a project about father's involvement, and she wanted to do a thesis. She wanted to go out and collect data, so she wasn't finding those dads that were very involved in their children's ECE. So instead, she designed a website. And she threw out the website to the community, and then she had fathers answer, oh yes, I do this on a survey as part of that website. So that was, she was sort of evaluating the website, and do dads find information on there useful, because she couldn't go and find those dads that already do it. Does that make sense? So that would be a project. And those are what I see the most common being done, but every year we always have 1 to 2 to 3 students that want to do the exam. Do you have a question? Yeah? Okay, just kidding. All right, you guys just don't want to ask me questions. Are we all good?
Are you taking questions?
Yeah, I'm taking questions. Yeah, what's your question?
I have a number of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
How many units of the 30 units go towards your core and your electives?
You know, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can show you.
Okay.
We can go find out right now. I can show you exactly where that is. So,
and what do the units, the classes, are they, what are they 3-unit courses, or are they?
they're 3-unit courses.
Okay.
Some of them, yeah, they are 3-unit courses, and it's down here. Right here.
Okay.
So it
that
gives you
breaks
the
it down.
information, yeah, it breaks it down for you. The only thing is if you notice right up here,
Right.
there's a 33.
Okay.
So the class that you want to like sort of eliminate is, where is it? Oh, it's not there. It's an EDGR class. I don't see it, but it's EDG 260. Yeah, so it never got changed. So that's why, I mean, so it's not updated. You have some of your core classes, so your prerequisites are 7, but then your required foundation course is about 12 units. Then you have your core courses, which are 9 units, and then you have your electives, which are 6 units, and your culminating requirement is 6. Yes, Dr.
Can I
Hodges.
just add to that, that full-time graduate work is 9 units.
Per semester.
Right, it's
Yes.
not like undergraduate level.
Right,
So
right.
you're not taking 12 units at a time or 15 units at a time.
Okay.
It would probably kill you.
Yeah.
And Dr. Alexander?
The catalog is not up to date, but it's 9 foundation, 12 core, 3 elective, and 6 for the culminating requirement. That should add up to 30.
Okay.
Do you know when the website is going to be updated?
It is very out of date.
Good job.
We don't have a lot of control over the website.
But it's good to ask questions because we will have the accurate information.
Yeah.
So, after us.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask if you wouldn't mind repeating the units one more time.
It's 9 foundation courses,
9 units.
9 units.
12 units for the core, and 3 units of elective.
So that's one class for your elective. Yes.
So in what area then are you specializing your
You
study?
can specialize right here in taking your core course requirements,
Okay.
and you can also specialize in your elective.
In your electives. And everybody's required a foundation.
Yes.
And is there a list of which professors are teaching or
Like what?
focusing on this?
You can find that out by going to our profiles.
Okay.
So you can locate that again on the Child Development website. If you go back there,
Okay.
you go right up here to College of Education Home. And you can go down here and find our faculty. And then you can look at the faculty. So you can see here if you click on, for instance, Dr. Alexander's profile, you can kind of see what she teaches. Of course, again, it's not as up to date as everything is, but that's why you can also email them or find that out.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yes.
And we also have a handbook that's updated either annually or biannually that you can find on the College of Education website, child development area as well.
Yeah, that's
And that has a page with all the current faculty and their research interests.
Thank you. Yes, I can show you that.
And that's limited just to child development, so that'll give you a better
Okay.
sense of your core faculty.
The handbook is right. Is this it? No. The handbook's not on our website. Is it? Am I looking at it? Okay, so I'll keep going, but the handbook is located somewhere, and we can, do you see it?
It's on the side.
Oh, is it on the side? Oh, handbooks, there we go, right there, handbooks.
I saw it.
Good, and here we go, child development. Handbook 2012. So that's the other place, sorry, thank you. Any other questions right now?
After you've completed the program, what kind of professional opportunities can you look forward to?
That's really good. So director of preschools is a big one, or directors of programs, after school programs, preschools. Some of our students use the degree to go on for their PhD and get their PhD in child development or related fields. You can teach at the community college or even as an assistant professor or not assistant, sorry, as an adjunct professor, even within our department. Within College of Continuing Education, oftentimes you can act as a mentor within the child development or as an instructor over there. So any other things you can think of? Social work is another one that people go into. Doctoral programs.
Research.
Yeah, doing research like at a think tank. For instance, like RAND or what's that other one? ETS would be another one that you can do a master's. But yeah, doing research, policy research. Some of our master's students go in and do policy research working for the state, especially because we're the capital, so that's a really great opportunity for them.
Some teachers.
Yep, some people are teachers, so they become master teachers after they get their master's, or they just wanted to, climb up a ladder within. So some of them do go on to get their credential, or they're already credentialed and now they want to get their master's. Works both ways.
We have graduates in the state, at the state.
Yeah,
Or
at the
in the
state.
Office of Education.
Mm-hmm. Office of Education or Office of Health and Human Services. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead. It's okay. No, don't apologize.
Speaking of what you were just talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I've rumor has it that you can be overeducated. So
Yes.
I'm just wondering which professions would that apply to?
I think that was more the case when we were having, I can't answer that question completely. I think that was the case like maybe 5 years ago. I don't necessarily think that's the case anymore.
Okay, just through your observations.
Through my observations. But I still hear that rumor, especially when you're earning your PhD. But I think it's for certain professions. Teaching at a four-year university with your PhD, I still think is challenging to get a job. But I don't know about the other professions, but through my observations, I don't see that as such a challenge anymore. I don't know if you want to add to that or anything. So yeah, I think it was a serious case about it 5 years ago, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Do you want to follow up?
Not tonight.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and we can always meet, if you want to talk more about that. Josephine, did
I was
you?
gonna ask, say for instance, if I wanted to get my master's in counseling, but I also wanted to probably be a teacher, do I have to be in the credential program now, or can I wait until I get my BA and then do the credential?
You can do it, yeah, you can get your bachelor's and then the credential and then your master's, or you can do your bachelor's, master's credential. It works either way. Any other questions?
That was the one. It was that I had heard if you did want to get a job as a teacher, that if you go in with a master's, it's more difficult to get hired
Not
because they
anymore.
have to pay you more.
No, not anymore. I do think that was the case about maybe 6 to 7 years ago, 5 years ago. I don't think that's the case anymore. Yeah, not anymore. I think the biggest thing is we want to make sure that our teachers have experience. So I think that, that they're working as well as, well, not working, but they're in the school system while they're doing their internships, that it's happening in the school, you're working with a supervised teacher. Because there was a time where we were doing emergency credentials, and I think we have done away with that. But yeah, that's not the case anymore. Any other questions? Okay. So the application process. So you have 2 applications, and they're actually not really connected. So they're 2 different ones. So I want to be clear on that. So CSU Sacramento campus, so on our campus, you have to do a CSU mentor application. And we'll talk about that one in a minute. And it's through the Office of Graduate Studies. And they do the preliminary review of applicants, making sure everything's in there correctly. Right? And then College of Education, Department of Graduate and Professional Studies, Child Development, we also have an application. Now, they do, CSUS Sacramento, the Office of Graduate Studies, gives us all of their information. So we get their information. It's just 2 separate ones, and we don't necessarily give them our information. Does that make sense? So the first application you have is the CSU mentor application. That's actually due Sunday, March 1st by 11:59 p.m. No late applitions. And you have to do it only online. So it's an online submission only. And there's a couple of things I want you to really pay attention to. One is our particular program does not require any sort of exams. You're okay. You're safe. We don't require any sort of exam. So you would actually leave this part blank. So there's a couple of different things. One, you have just your basic enrollment information, your basic contact information. That's 1 and 2 and really 3. Your personal information, where'd you go to high school? Those kind of things. Then it asks you about your residency in California. So it wants to know, are you going to be an out-of-state student? Are you going to be an international student? Are you an in-state student? Asks you again a lot of demographic questions. What's your ethnicity? What's your race? What's your age? What's your gender? Are you sure? All those questions. It does ask you a little bit about your college information. All of the colleges that you've ever gone to, including your community colleges, you need to list. And then your college courses, especially if you believe they're a prerequisite to any of the courses for our prerequisites, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. And then you have that test information. Again, we don't require any test information, so you would just leave that blank. You also have miscellaneous information, which is recommenders information. And what some students found a little challenging was here they ask you for the name of the person, the address, the phone number, the contact email, and something else that I can't remember. How long you've known the applicant or how long you've known them or something. But there's like 5 pieces of information, and they're different information than what we ask you in the supplemental. So just so you know. It's not a lot of different information, I think like 2 questions or something. And then the last thing is you have to include a statement of purpose. However, you don't have to include it on the CSUS mentor application because you're actually turning that into us. So what they ask you to write is statement sent directly to department. And they actually say exactly that. So it says it there, but I wanted to just make sure. And then you review your application and then you hit submit.
And don't do it at 11:50.
And don't do it at 11:50. What's great about this is you can create your account and then come back to it. So if you created it and then you were like, I'm tired, I'll work on it tomorrow, I'm tired, I'll work on it tomorrow, you can do that. You can kind of break it up into smaller pieces.
I just want to make sure I know where to find this webpage. Do I just go to Sac State College?
Yep, you can do that. So I will show you. So you can go right onto, I'm just going to open up another one. And you can type in right here, Office of Graduate Studies. And then future students. And then I went to apply, and then it breaks it down for you. You can also just go right under the CSUS mentor. So you don't have to go through all of that, you can just use the website, because basically, the CSU system uses one website for all their schools. And so you just want to make sure you click CSU Sacramento. Does that make sense? And that's the information that you're clicking on this very beginning, right here where it says sort of enrollment information. So you're saying term, major program, you're also saying your degree. I believe somewhere I selected the school. So that's all of that enrollment information. Does that make sense? So you could just go right to this website and not have to go through the Sac State. Yeah?
Is enrollment open in spring and fall, or can you?
For child development, yes. So you use the same. Not all programs are like that, but for our particular program, we do accept fall as well as spring admissions right now. Any other questions? Okay. For our in-house College of Education, Graduate Professional Studies and Education Child Development application, it's due Monday, March 2nd by 4 p.m. And there's a couple of things. We only accept paper submissions. So there's no online submission, and you need to either mail that or deliver it to Eureka 401. If you're mailing it, we have to receive it on Monday, March 2nd by 4 p.m.
No later than. No later than.
No later than.
Early's good too.
Earlier, yeah, early's good. I like early, that's fabulous. But no later than. The couple of things, we have a couple of requirements. One is bachelor's degree in a closely related field with a 3.0 GPA. And I say closely related field because some of us might be history majors, but we're interested in like the history of education. It's kind of interesting, right? So it's like, I have an interest in history, but I'm also interested in sort of the development, like history in sort of from a developmentalist perspective. Does that make sense? Like the history of education from a developmentalist perspective. We would love you in our program. Does that make sense? So, liberal studies, ethnic studies, sociology majors, child development majors. What else do we have? International relations, communications. And then within the last 60 units completed is where that 3.0 GPA comes into hand. And I don't want to be a stickler for the 3.0 GPA. Like some people have gotten into like 2.79 or a 2.80. We can make accommodations. That's where we're going to talk about this well-written statement of purpose. We'll talk about that in a minute. So again, paper submissions only. Again, to Eureka 401. Transcripts are needed for non-CSU students only. So if you're a CSUS, if you're a Sac State student, you're a Hornet, you don't need to worry about your transcripts. Does that make sense? Because we can just get this for you. Right, 2 letters of recommendations, including the cover sheet as well as the letter in a sealed envelope. So 2 letters. And then this well-written statement. And you can also get this information, again, from the website that we were at, Child Development. That's not it. Right here, and then you say, apply. And right here, Child Development, you just click on the application, and it gives you all of the information, as well as it shows you, if you scroll down, this letter of recommendation that needs to be completed by your recommender. Does that make sense? So if I was asking for a letter of recommendation, I would probably take this letter when I was asking for the letter of recommendation. And then you also need a well-written statement articulating your reasons for pursuing graduate study. And this is kind of your personal statement. tells me I need to accept you and not this other person. Does that make sense? Like if I only have a bowl and I can only put 8 apples in it and I have 10, you want to be one of the 8 apples. So it's kind of like you want to talk about your strengths, you want to talk about your weaknesses, you want to talk about what you bring to the table. So this is actually the question that is in our application. So it's explain why you wish to be admitted to the Child Development Program. Discuss your strengths, your skills, your experiences, anything that you bring to the program that you think is relevant. You can talk about awards or honors or any sort of research experience you've done, internships that you've had. So some of us have done internships, service learning in our core courses, right? So you can talk about those. And any specific areas in child development that you may be interested in working on. It doesn't mean that you will be working in them. You can change your mind. I totally changed my mind. I was reading my personal statement today and I was like, huh, that's interesting. In 2000, I was interested in aggression. Not really anymore. Right, so somewhere that changed. So it can change. You're not saying this is what I want to study and this is the only thing I want to study. These are things that can change. Things that it has to do. It needs to convince your audience, which is the faculty in the Child Development Program, that you're prepared for graduate school. You've taken the courses you need. You're prepared for the rigors. You're prepared for the readings, the discussions, the presentations. You're talented and you're intelligent, but you're not arrogant. So that's like the one that's a little close. Like, I'm really smart, but you don't want to come off like not nice or not fun to work with, right? That you're going to make a contribution not only to the department or to the program, but also to the community at large. You're going to work hard. You're going to succeed. You're going to finish what you started, right? You're going to be a good person to work with. You're fun. Don't say like I'm fun, but it'll come out. Does that make sense? Any questions? All right. So what makes it great? It's concise, so it's to the point. It's not fluffy. So it's not like, hi, my name is, and I'm da 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 da. No. It's just like to the point. It's 500 words or less, which is how many pages? Huh? Like a page and a half to 2 pages. You don't have room to be fluffy. It's short, so you need to keep it really, really concise. Need to keep it well written, and it needs to be organized. It needs to flow. I don't want to be reading the same stuff over and over again. So it does need to stay a little bit organized and on point. You need to answer the prompt that was provided. Personal, but not too personal, right? So tell me about yourself for this. Like, I don't want to know everything, right? That's for a later date. Speaks to your audience and establishes who you are without any sort of gimmicks. So some steps that you should be taking. So applications due for some of us, we're thinking about applying for that March 2nd deadline, March 1st deadline for the CSUS mentor. You want to take some steps. So I tell students, go talk to a friend and tell them why you want to go to graduate school. Like 5 minutes. Just talk to them. Have them take some notes. If they're a good friend, they'll take good notes. Just like 5-7 minutes about why you want to go to grad school. Their notes are your starting off place. They've probably already developed an outline for you. Because I do a lot better sometimes when you're talking, and then you take that and you're like, okay, this is what I was saying, this is what I meant here. Start doing some open-ended brainstorming. Just jotting down some notes about what you want to do with your life. Why do you have to go to graduate school? Why is that the next step for you? It makes logical sense. Think about some main points that you want to elaborate. Create a draft. Revise it. Do not write it the night before. You probably want to write like 3 to 4 of these, and maybe even have someone look at it for you. Whether that be a relative or a good friend or an instructor. I know I've looked at many personal statements, and I'm sure my colleagues have as well, and provided really good feedback to those. So you want to see if you can provide enough time. So that means you kind of have to get started like yesterday, right? In order to get some of that feedback. You also want to proofread it, check for grammar. Remember, we're using this to accept you into the program. So this is where this comes into play when it's like, I have a student, everything's right, but gosh, they have a 2.67 GPA. Well, you want me to fall in love with you at this personal statement, right? It's like, oh, this person would be amazing in our program though. Like, yes, they have a low GPA. They didn't do so well their first semester, first year in graduate school, but they're doing amazing work now. They talk about that, and then their recommendation letters are amazing, right? I'm gonna make an effort to get that student into the program. I'm not saying that it's gonna happen, but that's where this statement of purpose comes into real play, is because you wanted to say like, look, yeah, I may have had some challenges. I tell you about them really quickly, right? What was the challenge? I didn't do so well my first year. I didn't know what college was like. I was a first generation college student. I was in the wrong major. That happened to me. It was in political science. No, it was not for me, right? How did you get over it? I switched to the right major, right? And then where do you include it? I tell students, include it in the introduction or just the paragraph after, or the very end after I've already fallen in love with you. Does that make sense? So get it over with in the beginning, ripping a Band-Aid off, or have me fall in love with you and put it at the end. But you do want to address if you had a challenge. So if you do have a low GPA, address it. Don't rely on your recommendation letter to address it. Own it. It's something that's part of you. So this is actually my paragraph. It's a little long, but this was written like in 2000. So, and this is an example of how my cumulative grade point average is really low, and my GPA score was also really low. So I say that they're low and they're not accurate indicators of my academic capabilities and work ethic. And then apparently since January 2000, I gained a true understanding and appreciation for higher education and consistently worked to earn A's and B's. Because I've become a serious scholar, I have no idea where I came up with that. Again, this is from very early. Accomplishments, as well as my accomplishments in extracurricular activities. So I already had told him about this. I used this as my second to last paragraph. So I had already told him about all the other things I did. And then I was like, okay, I need to address this. I'm gonna just address it, and then I'm gonna move on. So it's like I tell them about it, but I also say they're not good indicators of my performance, and I know I can excel, and do well. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah, Josephine.
The statement you said was a page and a half?
It's about a page and a half to 2 pages. It's 500 words. And you want to follow APA, meaning use your 1-inch margins, do 12-point font, double space it, please. Because remember, we're reading a lot of these. And so if somebody gives me a 10-point font, single spaced, I'm like, okay. And I'm reading it at night on my computer screen. I'm like, oh. Remember, you're talking human beings here. So 12-point font. Don't go to 16 or something. Just 12-point font. Any other questions? All right, so financial support. So some of us are like, okay, I want to go get my degree, but how am I going to pay for this? You want to make sure you apply for FAFSA, right? Again, the deadline for that is March 2nd, so you have a lot of deadlines kind of coming up. And there are subsidized versus unsubsidized loans. So that still works in graduate school the same way it worked as undergraduate. However, the biggest difference with graduate education is that you get more money. So you get $18,500 you can take out as a loan. How many of us want to take out a loan? Okay, that's good.
One, two, or
Some of us are happy. So some of us are like, no, I don't want to do that. Good, because there's other ways to do that. First off, I did want to say that there is a workshop on our campus. There's, I believe there's 3 of them. February 5th, 17th, and the 9th. So you might want to take a look if you're applying to FAFSA and you're sort of like, you know, this is kind of new for me, especially because I'm applying as a graduate student now and things do change a little bit. You become, if you applied as an undergraduate, oftentimes you're a dependent of your parents as a graduate student, you're now independent. So the numbers change a lot. So you might want to think about applying or going to one of these workshops, especially if you're already on campus. For you two that aren't on campus, I'm sure they would still love to work with you. So just show up. Tell them I sent you.
Where?
It's in Mendocino Hall, 2007. So let's see. February 5th and 17th from 11 to 2 p.m. And then February 9th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. If you need more information, this is the website down here. I guess February is Financial Aid Awareness Month. Did not know that on our campus. Any other questions? Yeah, you can.
I have a question about the letters of recommendation.
Okay.
Do they have to be from professors, or can they be?
They can be, I would suggest you at least have at least one from a faculty member, but oftentimes you're working in the community and you're like, this person can really speak to my strengths and what I want to do with my master's. That would be another, but one should come from a faculty member. Good question. All right, so another financial support is our scholarships. And we as the College of Education do offer quite a few scholarships. So this is again the website, and there's various deadlines, they range. And these are for continuing as well as incoming students. So you can apply as an incoming student. And I tell students, yes, we have scholarships, but you should also just Google scholarships for education students or for child development graduate students, just using a Google search engine, because other fundings do come up. And I applied to all of the little fundings. My mom was like, it's only $250. Yes, I understand I'm applying. But by the time I was done my first year in graduate school, I think I was up to $2,700, just with all the little ones that I applied to. So these ones are, $500. Seems kind of little, but that pays for like half of my rent. It also would pay for books for probably, definitely the first semester, but I would say probably like the first year and a half of grad school if you just used it on that. Like books and supplies, $500, maybe even your whole time. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure to apply to as many as you can. Then there's another one that's $500 to $700, and I just wanted to show you like what they sort of look for. So this is Child Development Community Service Scholarship. You're actually eligible right now because it's any class level. So your CSUS students, you're eligible right now. And it tells you exactly what to submit, as well as here though you need 2 letters of recommendation. So you want to make sure you take a look at these scholarships, because you may have to get some of that supplemental information and provide opportunities for your faculty or your community supporters to write those. Does that make sense? This is one other one. This is the Barbara Lee Crocker Memorial Scholarship, $1,000 to $1,250. You should apply to this. Yes?
Is it acceptable to use your letters of recommendation for grad school towards scholarships, and then also your statement?
Yes.
Okay.
You might have to shift it a little bit, because you want to make sure that you want to make sure you're answering the prompt. So this one has a very specific prompt, but absolutely you can start using some of that other information. Once you have a really good personal statement, it's really easy to borrow language. And then you want to tell your recommenders, I also need a letter of recommendation for this scholarship that I'm applying to, and they can address it to the appropriate people, but oftentimes they leave a lot of that information in there. Once I have one letter of recommendation for a student, that student oftentimes just gets that same letter altered, because I'm like, it's the same person. So if I wrote you a letter of recommendation, Danielle, and you said, I'm also applying to a scholarship, I'm like, okay, let me just change the date and that information and a little bit of information down here to make sure I'm speaking to that prompt, and we're good. Does that make sense? But you want to let your recommender know, so that way they have the opportunity to be the best supporter for you. Good question. Okay, so what are some things that you can do right now as you're sort of thinking about graduate school preparing? One is clarify your career goals. So that way you can include those in your personal statement. Research the requirements for your specific career path. So if you know you want to do X, make sure you know the steps to get to that place. Maintain a competitive undergraduate GPA. So if you can get a 4.0, get that 4.0. Develop positive relationships with faculty. So you all in this room are really, really lucky because you're in Sacramento, you're on our campus, and you've got the faculty that already have office hours. Go meet with them or set up an appointment with them and just say, you know, I'm interested in going to graduate school. I'm interested in pursuing the master's program here. What can you tell me a little bit about it? Ryan, I attended the information session and I just have a couple more questions. You don't even have to have the question. You could be like, I'm just going to ask because this girl had this really good question and I already have the answer, but I'm going to see what this faculty member says. Does that make sense? So just so they know you, because it's great when somebody comes. I mean, I was in the room last year when we were going through, and some of our faculty were like, oh, the student came and visited me in my office hours and was really, really poised. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I don't know them, right? Because I was a new faculty member. But it was nice that they knew who those people were and they could speak to things that maybe weren't in your letter, right? So you want to make sure that you build those relationships. Gain experience working with children or youth and families in the community. So any sort of service learning you can do. Any sort of undergraduate research that you can do. So we all the faculty here on campus, especially in the child development program, we're doing research. We're working on ongoing research projects. So you can go ask them, like, hey, do you need a research assistant? Or I have a couple of hours, you know, this semester. I'd really like to work with you. Is there anything I could do? And there's probably something you can do. We can probably like, oh yes, I do have a little piece, a little nugget of something you can do. So absolutely. Any questions? So that's my contact information. You can send me an email at any time or come visit me at any time. I'm here Monday through Friday, usually all day. I do have office hours Tuesday and Wednesday, but you're more than welcome. And then we have other faculty members that are here all day, every day sometimes too. So that's all I have. Do you have any additional questions?